Nesan Nair from Sasfin Security joins me now to unpack those numbers further. Before we get into the markets, Nesan, let's start with those unemployment figures that we saw coming out today. Record levels we haven't seen since 2008. I mean, your thoughts on this? I saw a tweet earlier, someone saying government is so busy having family meetings instead of creating a conducive environment that will create employment.
Yeah, Rafi, good evening. I think, amongst the investor community out there, a lot of us have been beating our chests, just asking for government to review, some of the employment policies out there. The problem seems to be specifically around the youth unemployment. I think you mentioned that there's a massive correlation, between the amount of people, amount of youth that actually end up with a tertiary education, having started school, versus the unemployment rate. A lot of people that are unable, to find employment usually are those that do not have sufficient skills or sufficient educational capacity, sufficient qualifications, I should say, to put them in a position to get those jobs. And a lot of those opportunities are being missed. The country does need more and more skills, and unfortunately, if we don't skill up our people, this unemployment rate might even get worse, as the years go on.
Yeah, what hasn't been doing too badly today, Ness, unfortunately, are the local markets. I mentioned some of the catalysts being some resource stocks as well as Naspers and Prosus. But what would you attribute some of the major movements that we saw on the local bourse today?
Yeah, it was, if you follow the markets last week, the resources counters had a really horrible week last week. And I think this week, there's the bargain hunters seem to be out. Oil price, of course, the big indicator of sentiment out there at the moment. That price is up in the last 2 days. So the Sasfin share price was threatening to fall below the 200 Rand level, but has risen now comfortably to above 220. That's entirely due to the oil price. And of course, the Rand, another sort of measure of risk appetite, global risk appetite out there, seems to be teasing that 15 Rand level. Hopefully it gets stronger in the week. We'll just have to see.
We'll have to see indeed. Now, another one I was just looking up here was just a reflection on ZARX, that news coming out that the stock exchange, an alternative stock exchange rather, has been suspended by the JSE. The main reason being a lack of capital. I mean, your thoughts on this kind of move by the JSE? I mean, by the FSCA, sorry. It means that JSE just remains as the monopoly when it comes to trading.
Yes, I think, a lot of us have been following recently in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, lots of new exchanges being authorized to operate in terms of the Financial Markets Act, like the JSE, hopefully providing some competition to the JSE. But remember, whenever you're running a business, any institution in this country that is responsible or takes funds from the public, be it a bank, be it an insurance company, be it a financial services provider collecting premiums, ultimately you are subjected to very strict regulations, as you can imagine, to ensure that the public's funds are protected. And one of those regulations relate to how much of capital and how much of liquidity you must hold. Capital, remember, comes from your shareholders, and liquidity really refers to cash flow, how much of cash flow you must have in the business. And unfortunately, if you fall below those minimum thresholds, regulators can actually suspend your license while giving you an opportunity, to make the necessary correction so that you comply. And, unfortunately, if ZARX doesn't comply in the next 3 months, then they run the risk of having their license completely cancelled. Hopefully that doesn't take place.
Hopefully doesn't indeed. Nesan, let's end off the interview on a high note. Cannabis company Psilocybin Pharmaceutical planning to list on the JSE next year. This is because they've been given the license or the allowance to grow and package cannabis products, and of course seeing an opportunity to enter the stock exchange. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, it's if you look at the development of this product and, of course, the investment case for it, or in other markets around the world. Canada was one of the countries that was first, to the market with these companies, listing them as well. The JSE obviously will see its first one next year. Primarily, I think, focused at the sort of medicinal market. Of course, let's just hope that it's a successful listing. I was looking at some of the numbers that come. These are very profitable businesses. I'm sure they'll be very well received by the investors, because it provides, I think, another sort of dimension. There's traditional tobacco and alcohol companies that tend to provide very stable cash flows into the long term.
Very interesting insights indeed. Nesan Nair from Sasfin Securities giving us a wrap of the market stand.